Okay, so welcome for today's session. We'll be continuing from where we had left, that is from second chapter, verse number 56. Just a small recap that in the second chapter, Krishna talks about Sthitapagya. Or even before that, he gives these three formulas of how to work. Arjuna had a problem that if he fought, then he is killing his own kinsmen, his own family members, and that is very painful, and it is on the other side very sinful, and it is destructive for the family. So from three perspective, he is unable to decide whether I should fight this war or not. So Krishna says yoga karmashu kaushal, you should do your work in the process of yoga. Yoga means where you are connecting all your work to the supreme lord, and by doing that you won't get any reaction. So first he says is do your best. Don't worry about the results, because results are not in our hand, but doing our best is on our hand. Therefore, put your full heart in it and know that you put your faith in God and surrender to Him. In this way, you will be able to do your work properly. Hmm? And when you surrender your fruits of that work to God, then it will become perfect. And then you won't have any sinful reaction. And then he tells about that he Krishna has set up this varnashrama system where one slowly progresses in material life and one slowly progresses in spiritual life also. And then there are rules and regulations for brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, and shudra. If they follow that, then they'll be not worried of the results so much. Like a kshatriya has to fight, but he should fight with the codes of fighting. So according to the codes of fighting, he should fight. He should not fight with someone who doesn't have a weapon in his hand. Hmm? And he should not torture weak. Instead, he should protect the weak from the evil. Hmm? That is his main duty. So in committing that duty, if he does it full-heartedly, just for the sake of duty, just like today army people or policemen, when they do their work, if someone goes to reward them, they say we don't want this reward. It was our duty. So when one does it for the sake of duty, then it is perfect. We are not worried about what happens next and what will happen, because everything will be taken care of. So in this regard, Krishna talks about Sthitapagya. Sthitapagya means such a self-realized soul. So immediately Arjuna asked this question, previous two verses, he asked this question, what is the general symptoms of this Sthitapagya, self-realized soul, or one who is in samadhi or divine consciousness? How does he speak? Now when we talk about speak, not what his language or something, but in terms of speak, in terms of what is his content of speak, what is his substance of speak. When he's praised, he's blamed, when he's hated, he's loved, how he responds to all these things. That is what is real speaking. Okay, and how he sit just doesn't mean that you sit straight or something. Sit means how he restrains his senses, how he controls his senses, his eyes, nose, all these senses are there, right? Five types of senses are there. How he controls that. That is what Kim Asita means. And Kim Rajita means how he walks. So when he's talking about all these things, he's talking in terms of Sthitapagya, not a fashion design model who's walking on the ramp. No. A Sthitapagya, how he walks. For that walk means when we are in this world, we see so many sense objects. Sense object means so many attractive things in this world. So how he walks through all that without being disturbed. Sthitapagya means equilibrium, equipoised. So he's asking how he walks among all these attractive things and still remain equanimous. How he sits, meaning how the sense objects he controls himself and being equipoised, and how he speaks. Okay. So in this regard, we'll go to verse number. So 55 was general symptom, and those are Supreme Person of Godhead said, "O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desires for sense gratification, For every selfishness, if he gives up, that's Sitapagya, which arises from mental concoction. These pleasures are only mental. In reality, when they come in touch with us, we can experience that it was not that pleasurable. I'll give a simple example. We may really crave for certain mobile model of mobile, and for days and months, we may look after it. Meaning, we may look at the reviews, and the moment we may buy, after 1 month of buying, we are not so much interested in it as much as we were there interested beforehand or on the first day when we bought it. The reason is a lot of our desires are only mental concoction. Mentally, we think after this, I'll be so happy, I'll be fully satisfied. And we will be satisfied to some extent only, but not fully. And that's when we need to understand that there is a lot of mental thing going on in our mind. So, what is reality versus mental? We have to remove that mental and only keep the reality. And when we do that, then we'll be equipoised. So when his mind thus purified finds satisfaction in self alone, then he's said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. These are very technical terms. We will get into more details as we progress in our reading in Bhagavad Gita. What does the self alone means and all that. So right now, Krishna in this chapter, it is summarization of second chapter. So he gives a lot of information, and due to this, so much of information, Arjuna confuses on one of the concept, and that becomes the trigger point for the third chapter. So let's see, the 56th verse is 56, 57 is in regards to his speech. How a Sita Pragyasya speaks. The first thing is he's not disturbed in the mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, anger. It is called a sage of steady mind. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising or despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. So both are talking similar things of the concept of equipoiseness. That he doesn't get elated by happiness, doesn't get carried away by too much happiness. Neither he is despising if he gets some evil or failure. Hmm? He's not taken away with grief by both of the things. He just looks at it and says thank you, and he says okay, let's tolerate this failure, and he goes. So if I ask you, from the Indian cricket team, which captain had this quality, that he was neither taken away by too much happiness, success, or neither taken away by failure? We know that name. Any guess? Indian cricket team. In India, everyone is mad of cricket, right? Whom do you think the captain had this quality? Any comment? Who won the recent World Cup for India? No answer. You can type in if you don't want to speak. Mahendra Singh Dhoni, right? In Mahendra Singh Dhoni, he was called a cool captain. Why he is called cool captain? Because even when he wins or he loses, he is very equipoised, and therefore you can see, that they are not carried away by that, and therefore they get consistent success. That is also one thing about them. They get consistent success. So um, yeah, from the Vedic verses 2.56, he accepts everything, happiness, distress, for Krishna's mercy. So here examples from the Vedic times are given. This is Hanuman. So Hanumanji, he accepted his tail to be burned on fire. Distress, so much distress, and his happiness also. Hmm? He tolerated everything. And Prahlad Maharaj, this is story of Prahlad Maharaj, whose father was atheist, and he challenged Prahlad, and he tortured Prahlad. He's 5 years old. Why are you worshipping God? You should worship me. I am God. And then free from attachment, fear, and anger. Free from attachment, fear, and anger. Meaning, here, this is a story which happened 5,000 years ago. And this person who is sitting is Parikshit Maharaj. He is grandson of Arjuna. Arjuna is the hearer of Bhagavad Gita. And grandson of Arjuna is the hearer of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he was cursed to die in 7 days. At that point, he left everything. If you have seen somebody dying, they're so attached to their family, their possessions, right? But the moment Parikshit Maharaj came to know that he's going to die, he left everything and he went to the sages and he said, "What is the best thing I can do in this 7 days?" Hmm? So his investment was not material. He was saying, "What is a spiritual investment?" So he went to Shukdev Goswami, who is son of Vyasadev. Vyasadev, Vyasadev, the sage, the sadhu, actually the acharya, he has written the whole Vedas for us, because in the Vedic times we cannot remember the Vedas. Previously, the Vedas were remembered just by hearing it once. They were remembered forever. But now our memory is lost. We are very unfortunate. We are disturbed. So we need everything in written form. So he took that task 5,000 years ago and he wrote it down. And then through disciplic succession, he passed down this knowledge. Mahabharata, Ramayana, four Vedas, Upanishads, Ayurveda, astrology, astronomy, everything. We have this huge Vedic tree. This whole thing he divided into two, and he wrote all of this, and he gave it these books 5,000 years ago, and these are coming down. Some of them have lost, some of them are still there. Most important, the Bhagavad Gita is still there. Mahabharata, Ramayana is there. Most important, the Bhagavad Gita is there. There's Vedanta Sutra, a lot of things. So, coming back to our example, so Maharaj Parikshit was completely detached, and he didn't have the fear of death also. Neither was he angry that he was cursed. So let me give counter curse. He was not even thinking about that. So these are the examples from the Vedic times, and we can take inspiration from these examples. Let's get into the verse. If there are any questions, comments, you can interrupt me, speak, or you can type it in the chat. I will stop and explain. Dukheshva anudvigna manah, sukheshu vigata spriha, vita raga bhaya krodha sthita dhira muni uchyate. One who is not disturbed in the mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and one who is free from attachment, fear, and anger is called the stage of steady mind. Now, here the word muni is there. Muni ruchate. This word muni is explained. What does it mean? The word muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. Meaning, basically, these are philosophers. They will think philosophically and they will try to come to some conclusion. And they will debate with other philosophers. So these are muni. It is said that every muni has a different angle of vision. Every philosopher thinks differently. And unless a muni differs from other, it cannot be called a muni in the strict sense of the term. So philosophers, there are so many philosophies, right? And they establish their philosophy. But a Sthita Dhira Muni, but here in Bhagavad Gita, the focus is on a Sthita Dhira Muni. What does that mean? Is mentioned is different from ordinary munis. It's different from ordinary philosophers. What is he? He's always in Krishna consciousness, and he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. He's called Prashanta Nishesha Mano Rathantara, or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculation and come to the conclusion Sri Krishna Vasudeva is everything. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Now, this particular verse comes in the later chapters. I think in the 7th chapter it comes, where Krishna says, so many philosophers are there, they're thinking this way, that way. But unless they come to this conclusion that Vasudeva is the final thing, we need to go back to Vasudeva. That person is Mahatma. So the definition of Mahatma is one who comes to the conclusion that Krishna is everything. Till that point, he's not a Mahatma. He's called Muni, fixed in mind. Then he becomes a Titadir Muni. Such a fully Krishna person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of three miseries, for he accepts all miseries as mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy for more trouble due to his past misdeeds, and he sees that his miseries by the grace of Lord are minimized to the lowest. In this example, here we know from the story of Mahabharata, Yudhishthir Maharaj, so many difficulties came, but he didn't complain. He said, I will go through all of this, I'll tolerate everything. Similarly, when he's happy, he gives credit to the Lord. So Yudhishthir Maharaj, when previous to his exile, right, he had done a Rajsuya Yajna, and he was very happy because he got his kingdom. The kingdom was divided. He got a share, and then with the help of Krishna, Krishna called Vishwakarma, made for him, made a beautiful palace for Yudhishthir, and he was very happy by that. But he didn't take it to himself. He said, Krishna, you gave me all these things. So in the Ratsu Yajna, the final offering goes to the superior most person there. Now all the sages and saints were there. These are very old people, right? But Yudhishthir knew that Krishna is the superior person. So he gave the credit whole to Krishna in that Ratsu Yajna. And Shishupal, he got angry and he said, how come this guy you're giving so much respect to a person whom we don't even know what he is. He was born here, and then he was playing in the cowherd in the forest of Vrindavan. Yeah? We don't know what is he, and so he got angry and he got his head cut. Shishupal. So when happiness comes, he gives credit to the Lord, and when the sadness comes in life, he thinks this is all my past deeds. I will just tolerate all this and I will focus on spiritual life more. So in both conditions, they will focus on spiritual. And this is due to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and being able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification. Interesting definition. Detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. Attachment means we are attached to our own gratification. Gratification means enjoyment. How can I be happy? I don't care others people happiness, but I only care for my happiness. That is selfishness. That is attachment. Detachment means one is not worried of one's happiness. Hmm? Whether he gets or he doesn't get, he's not worried. If he gets, he's okay. He doesn't get carried away with that. If he doesn't even get it, he's still okay. That is detached. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness, neither attachment nor detachment, because his life is dedicated in the service. So let me ask this question: Should I aspire for happiness? Should I try to be happy? Because this is like attachment, detachment. We have to be detached. That means I should not be happy at all. It doesn't mean that way. What it means is the attachment, the enjoyment that comes from material sources, that is rejected. Meaning rejected in sense that is not so much appreciated. Neither it is rejected to extent that so bad. No. And one's real attachment is towards Krishna. So one gets pleasure in the self, right? We read in previous verse. In the self means in the service to the Lord, to Krishna. That pleasure is spiritual pleasure. And when one has that spiritual pleasure, then one doesn't look at these kind of pleasure. That this is what it means by attachment, detachment. Detachment means to be attached to the service of the Lord and find pleasure in doing that. Why? Because the service of the Lord is uh, is not material, is not full of duality. There is always happiness. We took the example of Bhishma. Let me see if there's one more example. Sorry, we took the example of Hanuman. Okay. There is one more example in Ramayana. I just say Jatayu. Take a picture. Yeah. So this is example of Jatayu. And there is example of Hanuman. Hanuman always had success, right? Success after success, success after success. Big successes. But in case of Jatayu, did he had success? No. He tried to save Sita, but he failed. In spite of that failure, Lord Ram embraced him and sent him back to God, gave him a spiritual birth. So the point is, I was talking about attachment and detachment. In both the case, Hanuman and Jatayu, they were never attached to the material success and failure. They were always detached. They were just doing their duty. But they were attached to Lord Ram. And that is where the pleasure lies, to being attached to Lord Ram. Now, this is the secret of spiritual life. The secret of spiritual life is from false attachment, we have to go to true attachment. Okay? This is the concept. From false attachment to true attachment. Oh, sorry. From false attachment to true attachment. What is the false attachment? Attachment towards the body. Body, material wealth, basically material life. And where our attachment should be? Spiritual, in the service of God. So we have to go from this to this. So we are so the detachment means we are detached from material pleasures and we attach to spiritual pleasures. This is a very important concept. If spiritualists don't understand this, then they will always struggle. Their pleasure, their source of pleasure is never material. From matter, if something comes good, they're happy, but they're not carried away by it. There's another story in Krishna's pastime of Sudama. He never wanted richness. He was satisfied in his poor life. But his wife insisted, your friend is Krishna, he's the king of Dwarka, he can give you little bit. And we don't have to suffer so much poverty. So he said, okay, fine, I will get to meet Krishna on this behalf. So he listens to his wife and goes. And there, Krishna meets him. There's a very loving exchange. And then Krishna gives him so much wealth. He doesn't tell him, he sends that directly to his wife. He then builds a new palace for him. He gives him so much wealth. When he comes back, Sudama is like, oh, where is my house? Where is my hut? The hut is not there. The big palace has come. And then he sees his wife. She's in beautiful clothes with jewelries and all that. And he's thinking, oh, this is not what I wanted. So, a spiritual person, his attachment is only towards spirituality. It is not towards material things. It is very less. It's only for the sustenance of keeping the body and soul together. This doesn't make that, okay, we should be in poverty. No. This means that we should only take that much which is required. Okay. If it is required that we have to work and earn certain amount of money to live a particular standard of life that we want, then that's it. We don't want to increase that standard of living. We want to keep it to a minimum sustainable level where it is not too much tending towards richness, tending towards too much enjoyment, but simple living. If in like very simple, one may have a capacity of buying a Mercedes car, but a spiritual person, he will think, should I buy a Mercedes car? Hmm? If it can be replaced with something cheaper than that, that is fine with me. That kind of decision he will take. So he will ultimately buy a car, but he won't buy something too luxurious. Hmm? That's what it means. So like that, he'll keep thinking, do I need two luxurious things or this is enough? Hmm? And that's how he will make progress. Does it make sense? Does it make sense, Manoj?
Yeah, yes, make it.
Yeah. If you have any question, you can interrupt me.
Yeah, sure.
Let's move to next word. This is again of the speech only. So the point here is we are talking about speech, right? So how were the speeches of Prahlad Maharaj, Hanuman, and Parikshit Maharaj? Interestingly, Hanuman, he tolerated so much fire and all that, but he didn't complain. Prahlad, he was threatened, and after the whole his father was killed, he prayed to Narsimha, the Lord Narsimha, to save his father from hell. And Parikshit Maharaj, he didn't counter curse. Oh, he gave me a curse. I will also give him a curse. No. He said, fine. You gave me. Now I'll focus only on spiritual life. So this is their speech. That they were never in retaliation mode. You understand? Retaliation mode. They were looking for justice. Like Hanuman didn't burn the Lanka, out of retaliation or something like that. He burned it to give them a punishment. They tortured him. Prahlad Maharaj didn't curse or despise of his father who tried to kill him. Parikshit Maharaj didn't counter curse. So you can understand how their speeches of a Sthita Pragya devotee. Yes, यह सर्वत्र अनिभेशनः तत्तत् प्राप्य शुभाशुभम नाभिनंति न द्वेष्टि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठितः. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. We took example of Hanumanji and Prahlad and Parikshit Maharaj. They were unaffected by whatever good or evil was happening to them. Their focus was Lord's service. Their focus was spirituality. And therefore, they were fixed in perfect knowledge. This is what we need to understand. We should not get carried away with too much happiness and too much of grief. Some grief is there, some happiness is there, but not too much. Like I will tell you, the Vedic times, let's say somebody dies in the Hindu culture. For how many days the grief is there? Do you know how many days the grief?
Around 13 days.
Yeah. So what is the purpose of giving 13 days? Because you have to grieve. There will be some grief. Somebody loving person left from your family forever. So there will be some grief. So it is not that you negate the grief. No, you grieve for that period, 13 days. And after that 13 days, you come out of it. So the concept is like this, that for the 13 days, you grieve. You remember that person, that good things that person did to you and to the family, etc. And then understand the spiritual nature of the soul. And then after that, you come out of it. That's why the 13 days is given. So, we are not to be carried away by that, like that. There is always upheaval in the material world, which may be good or evil. One who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one is in material world, there is always possibility of good and evil, because the world is full of duality. In this material world, now everything is dual. Um, People living in India, they aspire to go to America, right? America, UK, and they think everything will be solved there. People living in America can tell what is the duality there. Is it like everything gets solved? What is your experience?
No, they're having their own challenges.
Yeah, they're having their own challenges. You know, I lived in America for 13 years and I moved back to Bangalore. So I can tell you, India has its own challenges, its own advantages and disadvantages, and America has its own challenges and advantages and disadvantages. It's not like, so this world is full of duality.
I have short visit.
Huh.
Uh, yes,
Hmm.
California area, San
Hmm.
Jose, but I get anxiety there. In my whole life, I got to know what is anxiety word. Before
Oh,
that, I
really?
never met that word. And from there, when I came back, then I
Yeah.
reached ISKCON and get the mercy of Srila Prabhupada to come out of that anxiety and some different kind of medical issues. I never recognize it as mental issue or is it a physical
Hmm.
issue. It's a combination kind of. But when I went there and come back Bangalore, then I keep in touch with ISKCON and Srila Prabhupada.
Sure, sure. Good, good realization. So this world is full of duality. And therefore, Krishna says you have to overcome this world by yoga, and you have to come to the world where there is no duality. And that will be the later part in Bhagavad Gita. Hmm. But he's explaining to us how this world he has created. If Krishna explains, he creates this world. So he just explains that this world is made of only two things: dukkhalayam, ashashvatam. Things are very temporary here, and it is full of miseries. COVID and all that has taught us this thing, right? We thought COVID will, after COVID goes, then we'll be happy. But then another war started, and that is also crushing everyone. So sometimes there is happiness here, sometimes there is unhappiness. So this duality is there, and we are looking for eternal happiness, and that is the problem. If we are looking for eternal happiness, we are looking in a place where things are temporary. So how can we find something permanent here? So that's why when the person comes to this conclusion, then he turns towards spirituality. Getting? So spiritual persons, their motivation is like that. So anybody entering into spirituality should have this motivation that I am experiencing that this world is kind of weird. Sometimes there is happiness, sometimes there is distress, and I'm trying to find permanent happiness. Permanent happiness solution I want. I'm not able to find only. Then he turns towards Upanishads, as especially to Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna gives this knowledge, and then he says, where is the place where there is no duality? So you must have heard this word Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
I heard.
Vaikuntha. Vai means no, and Kuntha means misery.
No.
So Vaikuntha is a place where there is no misery. So Krishna takes us in this journey. In the later chapters, he will start talking about his abode. I'm just giving a um, trailer of what's going to come. Hmm? Um, so a devotee, a Krishna conscious person, a spiritual person, he's fixed in Krishna consciousness. He's not affected by good and evil. Why? Because he knows this world is full of devil, and his source of happiness is Krishna. He's simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good absolute. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in perfect transcendental position, called technically samadhi. So this samadhi means he's only taking pleasure in Krishna. It is at a very highest stage, but at our level, we will take pleasure little by little. Hmm? As per our dedication and surrender. We also take pleasure in Krishna. We go to Krishna Janmashtami, we chant his holy name, we eat his prasad. So we are taking little by little pleasure. So our samadhi is not samadhi for whole life. Our samadhi is like it is there only for few minutes or 1 hour or 2 hours. Like right now we are, for an hour we are reading Bhagavad Gita. So here is our samadhi. We are taking pleasure in hearing Krishna's word. So this is our samadhi. But after 1 hour we have to go back to work. So our samadhi is interrupted. But it is a progress. Always remember that. In Krishna consciousness, even if it is interrupted, it is not, is never lost. And I'll show you the words. We are going to read this. We are going to read this. Yeah, 40th verse. Oh, actually, we read this. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from most dangerous type of fear. So, even though our attempts are not fully matured, they are not fully fructified, they are not fully successful. There are some loss in it, diminution in it, some regression in it. But a little advancement on this path can protect one from the dangerous type of fear. So, you can understand that even though our samadhi may not be perfect, but there is no loss. In the material world, when I suppose everyone here is an engineer, and when you code or when you do something, if it doesn't work at all, it's considered a complete failure, right? The boss is not going to come and say, "Oh, good, you at least tried." Very rarely we find such bosses, but most of the time we'll come and say, "Yo, you are a complete failure. I gave you this and you failed." But Krishna consciousness is not like that. Krishna consciousness is, hey, even if there is a loss, diminution, there's a failure, still it is advancement. And we have Jatayu, the example for that. He failed in his mission. And we have Hanuman who passed in his mission, who was successful in his mission. But Lord Ram told to both of them, you both are great. You both go to back home, back to God. Such is the managerial leadership skill of Lord Ram. We won't find this kind of leader in our today's world, right? We have this experience. Let's move forward. Now 58. 58 to 63 is how he sits. A Sita Pragya, how he sits. An equipoised person, how he sits. Sit means he's not going to sit. This is a Sita Pragya. Okay. Meaning how philosophically he sits. So philosophical sitting means how he controls his senses. We have these senses, right? Hand, legs, and eyes, and nose, and tongue, and smell, right? Touch. All the senses are there. How he controls it. That is meaning of sitting. Yada samrite chayam kurmo anudeva sarvashah indriyani indriyathevyas tasya pragna pratishtitah. Now here the word kurmo is used. Kurmo is turtle. A turtle or tortoise, whatever. Tortoise in shell. Uh, let's pick some nice one. Okay. Now, if you look at this picture, right, of a tortoise, we see three tortoises. What is this tortoise doing? He has his hands and legs outside. But what about this one, this smaller one? He has pulled it inside, right? So when there is a danger, tortoise just goes inside the shell. And when there is no danger, it comes out of it. And that's the example given by Krishna here. This is how he controls the senses. When the senses, when their work is done, he will withdraw it. And when you need to nourish the senses, because see, the senses are ultimately parts of the body, their material body, they need some nourishment. Nourishment means you need to eat food to have a healthy body, right? If you want the hands to be strong, if you want your legs to be strong, you need to eat through your mouth. Agreed? Similarly, but once it is done, then you keep your mouth closed, right? You just can't keep on eating. Otherwise, you'll become fat and obese, right? So only eat that much which is required. So that's how we understand from the Kurma example. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as a tortoise draws its limbs within its shell is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. So how a tortoise sits is what we need to take inspiration from. When the work is done, withdraw the senses. When the work is required, bring out the senses. The test of the yogi or a devotee or self-realized person is that he's able to control his senses according to his plan. According to his plan. So the yogi, he has a plan. Every day he will do this thing. And then his senses will align to that and won't deviate him from the path. And that is his test. Most people, however, servants of the senses and are thus directed by the dictation of the senses. That is the answer to a question as to how to like every start of the year, people think that okay, I will start doing exercise. So what the market has seen is that in the very first few months, January, February, March, there's a lot of registration to the gyms. And those registrations fall off after 4, 5, 6 months because people are not able to continue with that because they're not able to have the determination. So that is the answer to the question of how the yogi is situated. The senses are compared to venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely and without restriction. The yogi or the devotee must be very strong to control the serpents, like a snake charmer. He never allows them to act independently, and there are many injunctions or rules for this. Some of them do's do not. So the scriptures say what is do's and what is not. By following that, then they can control their uh, senses. Unless one is able to follow the do's and don'ts, restricting oneself from sense enjoyment, it is not possible to firmly fix in Krishna consciousness. The best example set here is the tortoise. The tortoise can act can at any moment wind up its senses and exhibit them again at any time for a particular purpose. Similarly, the senses of the Krishna conscious persons are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord and are withdrawn otherwise. Arjuna has been taught here to use his senses for the service of the Lord instead of his own satisfaction. Keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is example set by analogy of the tortoise, who keeps the senses vigilant. Now we will understand this by the example of Hanumanji. When Hanuman went to Lanka, he became a very small fly-like creature, and he was going through every house of Ravana to see where is Sita. And there were many women who were not properly dressed. So he was not attracted to them. He just kept looking, where is Sita, where is Sita, where is Sita, where is Sita. And when he saw Sita, he came to her in his original form. So till the point his service was not done, he withdrew. He didn't enjoy. He didn't reveal his real self. When it was time, then he revealed. That's how we should control our senses. Let's see if we can do. Okay. Vishaya vinivartante nirahas dehina rasavarjam raso apiyasya param drishtva nivartati. Now this is a very important verse, very interesting. We may not be able to fully finish this, but I'll give you an example. What does this mean is by experiencing a higher taste, one can give up lower taste. Now, if I explain you, there is simple poha, and then there is gulab jamun. Now, somebody is taking poha, eating poha every day, every day, every day. One day he is given gulab jamun. Then he will say, "Oh, this gulab jamun is so nice." After that, when he's given poha, he'll say, "I don't want poha, I only want gulab jamun." So the point is, if one gets a higher taste, he can easily give up the lower taste. We have seen many people when they come out of alcohol addiction and all that. Many of them, if they're able to sustain it for a long period of time, the reason is they got a higher purpose in life, and because of that, they gave the lower thing. So we have example of Gandhi. I'll take a contemporary example. The reason is um, yeah, let's take Gandhi. He became a barrister, a lawyer. So he wanted to earn and he wanted to fight cases. At that point, barrister lawyer was the so-called engineering of today, huh? Where one could earn and become rich. But he was insulted in a train in South Africa, and then he wanted to fight for the cause of India's freedom. Right, that is the whole thing. So for the higher purpose of a country, he could give up his lower aspirations of barrister, lawyer, everything. So when one gets a higher goal in life, his his other goals they go away. So this is what it simply means. When one gets a higher goal, he gives up the lower goal. So a same thing when one gets higher pleasure, when one gets higher spiritual pleasure, he gives up lower material pleasure. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions, comments?
I don't have any questions so far in these slokas, but Prabhuji, I have one questions
Sure.
to basically it's not doubt. Uh, it's a it's a kind of understanding which I want to whether I am really going into the right direction to understand or how I can
Okay.
understand basically.
Okay. Okay. Hmm.
So I maybe a later point of time or maybe next session, you can guide me or help me on that. I start
Yeah.
reading Bhagavatam
Sure.
like a few months back.
Hmm.
So in that Skand 1 and the chapter 3, there we can open in this database.
Sure.
So I'm referring Hindi
Yeah, that's fine. It's
Bhagavatam.
one third chapter.
Yeah, Bhagavatam, first Skand, third chapter, 21.
Okay, 20 minutes. Hmm. Yeah.
So here, uh, Lord explain about all the different avatars. So here you can see the Paras Muni. They're giving like 17th avatar is Paras.
Hmm.
uh,
No, no. 70 authorized.
17
Sri
is
Vyasadeva.
Vyasdev.
Yeah.
Vyasdev. And after that, after the next verse,
Oh, okay.
he's
Okay.
giving a 18th avatar is Bhagwan
Ram.
Rajaram. So
Okay. Okay.
I'm not able to understand that Vyasdev written the Mahabharata, which is happened in the Dwapar Yuga at the time of Krishna, and the Lord Ram
Sure.
is the Treta Yuga, like before that, like we have Satyug, Treta
Hmm.
Yuga,
Hmm. Hmm.
Dwapar Yuga, and then Kali Yuga. So I just want to understand how I can understand
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
time lapse. Is it
Yeah.
all?
Chronology, right?
Yeah,
Chronology. So when Sukdev Goswami explained this, right, this particular chapter, he was not talking about chronology. He's just saying the incarnation, which all are there.
yeah.
So chronology is not the uh, main thing here. Okay. Uh, in,
I don't know. Like my mind is always uh,
yeah, we are taught. See, in
bound.
our education system, we are taught about chronology. We are given more focus on chronology. But in case of Vedic, yeah, in case of Vedic times, right,
Yeah.
it's not about chronology. The reason is
Mhm.
the reason is let me take you because that the oh, yeah, just hold on. I should get. Oh, no, this. Okay. Anyway, it's there on the Google, so I'll just show you. So the Vedic timeline is circular actually. Vedic timeline is circular. Let me just show you. You can open the site on your side. A very interesting site. Here, let's do the first one, human devolution. Yeah, this is the one. Okay. Yeah. This one. Okay, look at this picture. Let me take a snapshot. So first thing, the answer to your question is Vedic. This particular Vedic text, Shrimad Bhagavatam, is not talking about chronology. Okay. In some cases, it talks about chronology, but sometimes it doesn't. And the reason for this is life of Brahma. Okay. In the life of Brahma, every day comes. In one day, this is two things. This is just one day. There are 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas, and one yuga is here, so big. Okay, in this, so many incarnations come. Okay, so again, this yuga starts. Again, this yuga ends. Then its yuga starts, it ends. Yuga starts, ends. Yeah, like this, 1,000 times happen just in one day,
Okay.
like that. And then so many days are there. So time is pretty circular here. The incarnations of God. Let me see if the verse is here. The word used is wave. See how many waves are there in the ocean, right? Those many incarnations are there. And you can't say this came first, that came first.
Yeah.
You see? It's just unlimited. For us, this Bhagavatam is 16,000 verses, right?
Yeah, correct.
But the same Bhagavatam in the higher planetary system is, it goes beyond lakhs and crores of slokas. The
Oh,
details are, yeah, the details are more. So there they may have, instead of 7, they may have 7,000 incarnation.
wow.
So like that it is. So when you're reading Bhagavatam, come to know that chronology is not specific. Okay, don't be carried away with the chronology. This Bhagavatam is not giving chronology. There are few chapters which exactly gives chronology, but when it comes to the incarnation of the Lord, sometimes the chronology is not there. Okay, does that help?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Okay.
I could not think about this point of view actually.
Yeah, yeah. See, the acharyas explain this. You will, when you go further, you will see that there is a verse where Maitreya Rishi he talks, and in his talking he talks about Vara avatar,
Mm.
and he is referring to two Vara avatars. We
Oh,
know only one, but actually there were two, and the acharyas they give the example. So we need the help of the acharyas. We need, so when you read, right, make sure you read the purports also. Hmm?
Sure, sure,
Because the purports will give you the in-depth understanding, and they will resolve some things, and otherwise if you contact with devotees, they will explain it.
sure, sure.
Okay. Okay, so let's stop today, and let's meet next week and we'll continue.